Hey guys, we are so excited to be with you today, and we have a special guest. We'll give it a couple minutes for some people to trickle in, get your groove on, but hopefully you guys are here to enjoy another episode of the Epic Hour.
Yeah, I'd love for you to put in the comments where you're from. If you're watching this on the replay, #replay, still let us know where you're from. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think so. And you know us, on the fly, impromptu. So the team had reached out last week and said, hey, what are we going to do for the topic? And Bailey and I are out on the road in Ontario, and so I had said, well, let's see if we have any of our awesome people in our network who want to come on for our Epic Hour. And actually we were just talking to Limor, because she's an amazing coach. I don't know your exact title, we'll talk about that. But we were talking about a deal we had funding, and I was like, let's go visit Limor. And then, our schedules worked out. Everything went well. It was super, super exciting. So yeah, we're streaming on Instagram too.
Yeah,
we're always focused
what's up,
here.
Instagram?
So yeah, but awesome. So how's Alisa doing today?
What did you get up to this morning? Give us a couple, what's the world of Alisa look like?
Well, today's not the day to mention that. Actually, I'm struggling today. I have shingles, so I'm really just trying to stay afloat today. So yeah, that would be the corn growing between my eyes right now.
Well, we'll chat after this call because I have a couple ideas for you. We got to get you to your best self, right?
Oh yeah. No, I normally have an intense morning routine, and today it was just not happening. So, but.
Well, there you guys go, right? Alisa's still here. She showed up. And how many of you guys, want to throw in the towel, and you just got to flip your socks and get her done, right? So we've got a few people on here, and I know we've always got people on Facebook, and we appreciate you guys for being here. So we will introduce Miss Limor Markman.
Mm-hmm.
So I will leave it to you to introduce yourself, because I don't know your exact title.
Yeah, totally. Well, I go by a lot of things. Entrepreneur, first and foremost, lifestyle entrepreneur, but real estate investor and money expert. And I have been on a mission to help people understand how the heck money works for many, many years. Kind of background. Actually, I've always loved money. My parents, this is a funny little story. I think I've told you this before, but I started getting my allowance when I was 7 years old. It was like the $2 bill. I don't know if you remember that old school thing. And I would bug my parents, please take me to the bank. I want to put it in the bank account, update my bank book. So money has been a fascination, and no doubt ended up working in the banking industry for 12 years, really figured out how the heck banks are making so much money, which is actually a perfect parlay, I think, into what we're going to chat about today and what these awesome gals are doing in the world. But, I began my journey in real estate investing, and I hope we can chat because we met early on in both of our journeys, but really, have been supporting investors for a good 6, 7, 8 years at this point in time. And my focus is really on helping people to have very strong passive income. So, if you're not interested in being active, you're not interested in, learning a whole new skill set, you've got an absolute great life, great job, and you followed all the conventional advice, you've read all of the books, and you're saving and you're doing the best you can, even conventional advice, you hit the ceiling. And that is where myself, Lady Limor, comes into the mix to help, remove that ceiling. And these awesome gals are significant partners of mine. I adore them, and it's been such a pleasure to see them grow. So I'm an open book, and I'm excited to chat with you gals today. And if anyone has any questions, definitely in the chat box below, give us some love, and we're here to have a fun conversation.
Exactly. So that is awesome. We're super excited. And at the end of the day, we want you guys to ask the questions, right? It's not every day that we're able to have a guest, especially live coming from you from Ontario. Super fun. So again, in the chats, our team will read any questions that come through, comments, any of that fun stuff. Maybe you guys know Limor. So back in the day, we actually met through Rich Dad.
In our very first class. Okay, so get this. I come in and I'm hanging out. I had another gal pal who was taking the classes with me, and we're like, oh my God, there's 2 other girls who are young and spunky and ambitious and want to change the world. It's true. But these 2 girls were both brand new to real estate, just like me. Like literally, I owned a condo in the Toronto skyline, had made tons of mistakes in buying it. The four of us were like, we know nothing about real estate, but gosh damn it, we are gonna freaking figure this out, change our lives and the lives of so many others. So it's super cool. And we were all, we were eager, asking a lot of questions, taking a lot of notes. We were super, super coachable. And actually, it's one of the things that I still love about both of these amazing gals is that they're always learning, they're always developing, they're always getting better, they're always outsourcing, they're always, how do we level up? How do we bring more people in? How do we give more people homes? And we just happened to meet when we were all just getting started. We all have these big visions, and gosh, who would have known that here we are today hanging out in my money vault, my office, catching up all these years later.
Yeah, it's so wild how the journey just kind of happens, right? And we, we're friends on Facebook and stuff like that, but we had really reconnected about a year ago.
Yeah, probably I would say
like
a year and a half ago.
Yeah. And then at that time we had kind of chatted and whatnot. Again, sometimes I always tell people, like, when you have friendships, you have relationships, whatever, sometimes it's a season. Sometimes there's a reason, sometimes it's a lifetime, right? But it's so refreshing when you're able to go about living your best lives, and then all of a sudden you've, kind of grown as a person, and then other people are growing as a person, and then you get to reconnect. And that's really what's happened. And at that point in time, I ended up being at an event, and Limor was presenting about educating other people about investing passively in real estate. And I was like, hey,
that's what you do? Wait, that's what I did? What?
Yeah. I was like, where do you bring your investors that you teach the things? Because we have the things.
It was like peanut butter and jelly.
Totally. And so that's when we really reconnected. We're like, oh my goodness, like we're always looking for people to help educate the masses. Because for us, I find it so frustrating when we're trying to educate people on, don't have a house paid off to nothing, leverage it to get your money working harder than you are. You don't have to give all your money to a mutual fund advisor, putting it, or personal financial planner, putting it in stocks and mutual funds where you don't have control and you're not making those double-digit returns. And hey, let us show you a different way. Whether you invest with us or other opportunities, that's fine, but just take your control back. And that's really what Limor does now.
Yeah, and I mean, this year has been a chaotic year. I would say more people were impacted financially by the world happenings in some way, shape, or form. They've lost their income's decreased, their stock portfolio dropped 40-50% plus, and more people, I would say, are impacted financially than they are from a health perspective. Like, I am very confident about that, and I don't know what it was like in your world, but for quite a few months, I felt like I was a financial ER doctor. It was like, hey, all of a sudden, like, I had this awesome job. I was like the head chef, boom, restaurants closed, and like money is gone. People super close to retirement, they're in the stock market because that's what they've always done and that's what they've always learned. And that was, the only thing they knew. And then now they're seeking out new opportunities. So you absolutely need to be in control of your own destiny and where you're going financially. And for me, I mean, it's such a privilege to help people and of course teach them, but they need somewhere to put their money, and that's where you offer such amazing opportunities.
Would you say that for people that the importance of their financial take back is really the biggest thing they could do for their family and friends and all the things? And the reason I ask that is because, like you said, there's so many people that have lost jobs and have lost the things. Now, had they, in hindsight perspective, looked at real estate as an investment and had that nest egg, basically, does that also, do you feel, lead them to the kind of career or job where they can be more passionate? Because maybe that job pays less, but because they're in real estate, it gives them more freedom, or it covers them better for these kinds of losses. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked that kind of question for clarification. I mean, I deal with this all day, day in, day out. So, outsider's perspective is, beautifully appreciated. And, I would say, and it's kind of like what I was alluding to at the beginning here, is that people are really trying to do their best, right? Like nobody wants to eat bad food. Nobody wants to be unhealthy. Nobody wants to not have enough money for themselves and their families. So, first off, want to acknowledge that people are doing their best, right? With the information that they have from what they've learned from their family, what they've learned from society. But if they start to get more curious, if they start to say, well, hold on, what is that? Instead of kind of saying like, oh, well, I know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who lost money in real estate. So, this thing is an absolute disaster. But I would say it really starts to create freedom, because if you are in an environment where you have a job and maybe you don't love what you do, or maybe you absolutely adore or love what you do, you still have a ceiling, right? And not everybody's kind of like an entrepreneur. Nobody, not everyone wants to like quit their job or jump off a cliff or a top of a building, financially speaking. But as a result of that, real estate, especially if you're going to be doing it in a passive capacity, is going to enable another stream of income, which is not trading that time for money. Because so many people, even if you love what you do, you still are limited. You got 24 hours a day. You got to have your job and your family and your passions and, all the things that you really love to do. And all of a sudden figuring out that if you can make your money work harder for you, it can significantly change your lifestyle in the current. And I would say probably even more importantly is for your future. I mean, I work with a lot of people who just are doing their absolute best, right? Even if you're making $80, $100, $150,000, you're an executive, you're making $200,000, after tax, that's $100,000. And, even if you've probably got an expensive lifestyle at that point in time, you got to keep up with those executive Joneses. And even if you're in a place where you've been able to save 100 or 200 or even $500,000, which I know for some of you guys listening may be like, oh my God, that's a ton. But, even if it's like I'd say $500,000, that doesn't mean your lifestyle is going to be sustained for the future. Retirement is pretty much not an option unless you've got like multi-millions, or you've got kind of the opportunity to have a cash flow faucet that you've turned on. And I know you guys offer those programs as well. But for the average person, even if you're saving as much as you can of your after-tax dollars, if you're not investing in a vehicle where you have a very strong return on investment, you've got a lot of security, you've got money on a regular basis, and it's passive, how are you going to get ahead for the future? So, I mean, great question, because the opportunity and having the depth of vision, which is kind of like the foresight for the future, to say, hey, I want and deserve a better future. I mean, real estate done right can absolutely enable that. And I love that this year, more people, I would say, than ever are starting to get curious, because we always talk about the worst case scenario, and I actually kind of want to turn this back on you gals to say, in a lot of real estate strategies, there has been a lot of chaos and turmoil this year. Renovations that stopped at a complete halt, and tenants who stopped paying altogether. But real estate can be really powerful when done right, and you guys are certainly, in my opinion, are doing it right. So maybe if you want to even shed some light on like what happened this year in the strategies you gals are involved in.
Yeah, Alisa, do you want to take that?
Sure. So honestly, for us, we honestly had two of the best months that we've had. Like, it was awesome. I can't lie. We're trying not to dive into that hardcore, because you don't want people coming, all the naysayers and haters and everything just coming at you. But facts are the facts. We ran an amazing promotion. We saw a thing. Again, I think this is the biggest, I don't want to say problem, but the biggest issue out there with people is that they don't want to see things that are coming, right? And like, it's like you talked about how people should invest in their future, right? Well, they're not even, it's almost like they're not even open up to enough to think about the future, let alone what's happening next week or a month from now, right? And I think that's the biggest thing that society needs to change. stop with the, looking only 3 steps ahead when you should be looking 3 miles, right? I think that's a big one. And so for us, because we are trained to do that, where it's like, let's look further down the road. How is this going to, what's this going to do for us? What we did in the end was we turned around and offered an amazing promotion so that we had most of the investors that came were repeat clients, but I believe there was still quite a few that came right off the street that went, holy crap, I've heard about your program, we're going to invest. So from April 15th to June 15th, we did 102 real estate transactions.
Holy smokes. Wow.
Right? And I mean, even top end realtors, I don't know very many that do that kind of a transaction, right? And
Can I call you and say, holy smokes, congratulations? And I mean, everybody watching this, let us know in the box below. I mean, how freaking amazing. Let's celebrate these awesome boss babes.
Yeah. It was great. It was
huge.
$20.96 million of residential real estate transactions. So
oh yeah.
it was crazy. Yeah.
Insert sound there.
Crazy.
And I mean, that the biggest part about that is the people's lives we got to change and help in that time. That was the best part, right? You talk about how, taking control of your finances and trying to work out something so you can have the better future, right? And I mean, that was living proof of it right there. And I mean, we ran into all kinds of hurdles because, all of a sudden there was everybody going, well, we're not going to sell our houses potentially because of everything going on with COVID. And I had to get creative because that's more my side as the buying side. And Rochelle was like, we sat down, how are we going to get the investors to come to the table, right? And so we just got creative. And in the end, we were able to take something that should have or could have potentially been very, very difficult for a business and turn it into an amazing win. So on the buying side, for example, I started sitting down with the realtors and I went, okay, here's what you're going to do. You're going to go offer people that we're going to buy their house and they can stay there for a month and just pay their utility bills. So we appeased our investors. We put their money to work. We appeased those that were selling the properties because they were like, oh, I got 30 days with that money in the bank to make things happen or to make my life choices. It just, all I had to do was listen. Same with Rochelle with dealing with the investors. All we had to do was listen and the answers were right there. So that was what COVID was to us. It was an enormous opportunity to listen to people.
I just want to say that is such a testament to who you are and where you're going in this business. I mean, I know I've heard people, and you've mentioned that people have said, like, how did you gals get so lucky to have the right strategy and the right place? And let me tell you,
lucky is the F word.
Ladies on Mars, and they will make this happen in a different capacity. They'll serve different people. They'll be more creative. And that's just such an important part of who you are. Because I mean, maybe there's 1% of luck, which is your preparation meeting the opportunity that's there. But, working with people who are creative, who are amazing listeners, who have integrity up the yin yang and down the street and all the way back, is really, really powerful. And it's been really interesting for me to see this year how people have responded. I mean, I would say by even the middle of March, a week or two after kind of like the world went into a little bit of a frenzy, my husband Andrew and I joined a very high level mastermind, massive investment on a monthly basis, but we're like, the world is changing. We need to be around people who are creative, who want to be a beacon of light, who want to see this as an opportunity to help people as things are unfolding. And I mean, that's part of why we've just had such this beautiful, strong connection. So massive congratulations to you. And I know it's given peace of mind to so many home sellers and so many investors when it's like, oh my gosh, so much in my financial world is uncertain. It's okay, because my money with Epic Alliance, it's rocking and rolling.
And, it's for us, like, it's great that we're making money. It's great our investors are making money. It's great that we were able to keep all of our team members employed throughout this whole craziness and whatnot. But what I think for me really hits home is when I got a message from an investor being like, hey, you know what? I just so appreciate that I have this investment with you, or whatever that capacity is, because in a really uncertain time, I knew that this was something I could bank on. Yeah. And so for us, I'm like, that's why we do these things, right? And, Bailey and I met with a set of investors yesterday. We had multiple meetings, but the one, they were talking about how they always tell people about what they're investing in, and they do both of the products with us. They have hassle-free landlord houses, and they do the fund to flip. And because, again, we always talk to people, it's like everybody's blueprint to get to your financial goals is going to be different, right? Depending on what your goals are, depending on what you're working with and all that. And that's why we always go back to that discovery session phone call. But for them, they said, like, we talked to so many people who we know would be great for you guys, and they just don't want to listen for whatever reason, right? And so, and so they're so frustrated. So we just actually started this new thing. And again, it was kind of like a little bit of an epiphany I had on my side, where I was like, we have to go back to educating people, right? You don't know what you don't know. And if you don't know that you don't know it, how do you know to go look for it, right? So we're kind of switching up our marketing a little bit online, just trying to say, like, hey guys, do you have a house that is completely sitting with tons of equity? You don't want to sell it, but you are wondering how you can get ahead. What if you go to the bank, get a home equity line of credit at 3%, turn around, invest it making 15%? What could that do for your world, right? And so then we actually filmed a half an hour epic masterclass where we're trying to educate people about good debt versus bad debt, assets versus liabilities, leveraging and power of real estate, blah, blah, blah. And so I've been sending out this link to people in our network, and I'm like, all those people who are not getting it, I said, why don't you try, watch the video, and then you can either start using some of this language in your conversations, or send a link and see if anybody takes any, has any brain waves or any aha moments from there, because it might get them on a discovery session phone call, or it might get them to finally take action. So we're going to see what happens there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, this is kind of the piece of the puzzle that fits into your world. So, I mean, my focus is educating investors, and I do it in a completely mentored, unbiased third-party kind of way. So, you cannot invest your money with me. I'm not a realtor. I'm not a mortgage broker. I'm not a lawyer, not any of those things other than a, financial educator. But when I work with my clients and they want to do amazing deals, but they're like, hey, my mortgage broker said it's a good deal. How do I know if it's a good deal? Or, I'm of that personality where I need to know more. I need to understand what's my best case scenario, worst case scenario. What are the contracts? Like, for a lot of people who've never heard of private lending or how it translates into your world with fund to flip, they're like, I want to do something like this. I love that these options exist, but how do I know if it's the right fit for me? Just because there's a good deal may not be a good deal for my financial objectives, or what am I missing? So what's really neat is working with my clients, and actually work with clients all across North America. I have an amazing US business partner. So anyone chiming in from the US, let us know down in the chat box. And if you're anywhere across Canada, give us a little wave, tell us where you are. But really helping people to understand the process, how to evaluate the borrower, the property, what do the contract looks like, what does it mean for me in a worst case scenario? Because any investment you make, you want to sleep at night. You want to feel great. You don't want to have to worry about it. And then I work through lots of case studies with my clients so that, you've had some practice. Because the first time you go to make $150,000 investment, for you, you're like, hey, here's the bank, here's the bank account, go ahead, put it in. And you're like, but I've never done this before. How do I know what I'm doing? So I work with people to have a really solid understanding of what that's going to look like, introduce them to my network. And you guys are amazing partners that I work with on the regular. And then I am there on speed dial. So we had a client doing a deal with you this week. He texted me right after, okay, Limor, I got the contract. Can you look it over to me? I want to understand, did I do it right? All that kind of good stuff. And then I'm there to support, but not all of my clients, but a lot of my clients are like, holy crap, these opportunities with Epic Alliance are off the hook. Thank you so much for introducing me. And because I worked with you, I'm not just signing away. I know this is a freaking amazing opportunity that aligns with my values, my plans, my focus, where I'm going with my life, my legacy, my finances. And they're just like, wow, thank you so much. And that's why part of while you're here in Ontario, I know you're going to be meeting up with a whole lot of our mutual clients now.
Yeah. Exciting stuff.
Absolutely.
So in your coaching program, Limor, for people to, I guess the first step would be they would get a hold of you and then you would have a session with them. How does it, like, could you break it down just a little more?
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely. So typically, I would say the majority of people who reach out come from one of two places. Either they've seen webinars and YouTubes and my social media, and they're like, oh my God, I didn't know this thing existed. And what's interesting, and I've been called the queen of private lending in Canada because there's really not a lot of people, I'd say hardly any, teaching private lending, because you go to so many real estate clubs, you read the books, the videos, and they're all like, use other people's money, use OPM. But it's like, who are these people? How did you find them? If I have some money in my registered accounts, TFSA, RSP, something like that, like what do I do? How do I know who to lend to and what that looks like? So, I would say a lot of people reach out to me from social media, from, online presence. The other thing is my referrals are absolutely massive. My clients have a 100% success rate of getting into deals. And that's, kind of like you guys, your investors work with you, you have 100% success rate. And that's really unprecedented in the industry, and kind of nice to use the word unprecedented in a good way. This year has been crazy. But yeah, when someone reaches out, we have to make sure that we are a good fit together from a personality standpoint. I like people who are curious and action takers and are grateful and like actually want to make a change in their life. Once we figure out that it's a good fit for us to work together, I do it in a one-to-one capacity. So unless it's a couple or, mother-daughter, something like that, and we go through a series of classes online, on Zoom, curriculum that I've designed where basically they learn everything beginning to end about how to be a lender, how to evaluate the deal, what happens in the process, like, how do you make it most tax efficient? And the way that we're doing it is not only just a curriculum, but the curriculum is also catering to where you're at. So if I'm working with someone who's brand spanking new to real estate, we have a very different discussion than like, I had a client this past year who had more than 60 properties. And he was like, I have all these doors, I have all these joint venture partners, but it's still not cash flowing in a way that we can properly retire. So, as a result of that, really working with the clients, and in between each session, I give them a case study, which is a previous live deal that either myself or my clients have done before, and they take it away for homework, and they basically have to evaluate it based on all the criteria that they've been learning every session, kind of speeding up. And we have a robust discussion, and ultimately they come up with what they like, what they don't like, the questions that they have. And then I force them to make a decision with Monopoly money, whether they're in or they're out. So by the time they're actually working on live deals and they're actually investing real money, they've made decisions on a variety of different deals, on homeowners, on real estate investors, on flips, blanket mortgages, like quite an array. And then they're ready to go. We also, as part of the process, figure out for them which is the best financial institution that enables private lending. And we don't even begin to look at live deals until they've decided how much money they're allocating. If it's a registered fund, it's transitioned over. And then that's where we kind of get into the matchmaker phase. So, of course, I educate them on how to find the deals themselves. You gals are amazing, but sometimes people want to be diversified, different provinces, different strategies. Ontario's got the power of sale process, which means in the worst case scenario, it's much faster than most of the other provinces. So people are looking to diversify. And then, they say to me, I've got $100,000. I reach out to my network, of which you're one of them, like, hey, someone's got $100,000. Here's their criteria. Is it going to fit? Is it not? And then I'm kind of like their little money guardian angel, copied on all the emails. They can text me, email me, at any point in time. I only take on a few students at a time, so it's not like 50 people get to text me anytime they want. But I will tell you, and you gals can probably attest, the reason I am where I am today from a real estate perspective is because I had mentors who helped me, who were like, Limor, stop, put on the brakes. You're about to make a massive mistake. And also times where mentors were like, okay, we've triple checked this. You are ready to fly off the building, like give you a little gentle nudge to be able to get you going. But, ultimately the point is to support people to get from where they are to where they want to be. And most of the time it's through an avenue that's unconventional, they haven't heard of, feels scary. But once they're over to the other side, how many of your clients do it again and again and again and again? Yeah. It's like you can never go back, right?
Yeah, you can't unknow what you know.
Yeah, you stretch an elastic band and it never goes back to its original shape. So,
and the one thing I will definitely completely give you so much appreciation for is every time you've brought us a new investor, they've just been amazing to work with. They already know the entire procedure, and then literally, process, I should say, not procedure. And then Limor basically says, this is how much they have. It's going to be a ninja strategy. They have this much in their HELOC, RSP, whatever. This is the TFSA. Find them a deal. We do right away. Again, generally between 5 to 10 business days. I think right now we've had so much money flow, it's been like 5 days, maybe sometimes less. And they're just ready to go. They don't say, oh, well, what's this and what's this? They just know, okay, now I'm going to send you the paperwork. You're going to do this, this, and this. And then they sign it. And I'm like, this is what to expect. And, sit back, hold on for the next 6 to 12 months, and we'll keep you posted when the deal's done.
And ultimately, that is my goal, right? Let me help you. And I consider myself like, I'm the guide. You are the hero of your own story. You're the one, I'm going to help you go down that yellow brick road until kind of the pot at the end of your rainbow. And I meet you where you're at. So, I've got some people who are more visual learners, some that, stump me and ask the toughest questions. I had one client just a couple weeks ago asked me a question that I actually didn't know the answer. It was such a sending him love, but it was such a what if of the what if of the what if. And I was like, I hadn't even thought of that, but I jumped on with the financial institution, my lawyer triple checked it. And he was like, oh, okay, I've got it. Right. So it's neat to be able to help people. And I'm seeing you up in the chat box. If people are wanting to reach out, the best place to find me is one of two places, either on Facebook with a name like Limor. I'm super easy to find, or, popping me an email. It's Limor, Limor, at limor.money. That's right. No .com, .money. And, I'm always willing to have a conversation and see where people are at, if they're kind of ready to invest in themselves. And, like you said, Alisa, a little bit earlier, like not a lot of people are in the grand scheme of things willing to do it, but those who are ready, like those are your people, right?
Yeah.
Those are my people.
Yeah.
And it's great to be able to connect on so many levels. But, most importantly, it's that I'm willing to make my life better. I'm willing to do what it takes so that I can live a life that most people will never actually get to. And I mean that with a lot of love. It's not like a snotty kind of thing.
No, it just is what it is. You reap the reward. Success leaves clues. So
yeah.
What if you had to pick 2 or 3 things that you've worked with enough people over time, and you really, I'm just going to be upfront, you're far more of a coach than Rochelle and I are. We're just very active investors who are, just blessed to be with people like you. And so when you're looking at the demographics of people, what would be the top 2 or 3 things that you really feel hold them back from looking at things like this, or just picking up that phone and talking to you? What do you think that is?
So I'm going to answer this question in kind of a roundabout way in terms of what are the things that I notice in the people who do call. And I would say typically they've been a little bit unconventional in their life. So maybe they've worked a little harder or had a career that required them to, you know, be out of the norm or extra schooling or, you know, relocate to a new area. And what I find is that they're willing to challenge the status quo just a little bit, you know, to the point where they are messaging me, to the point where they are jumping on a call and saying like, what? There's this thing that I didn't know about? Like, how cool is that? So, you know, kind of to reverse engineer your question, I think it's if you really just believe that, you know, what your financial planner is telling you is kind of your only option, then typically you're not going to be open to these kinds of conversations. And also, I mean, where does your mindset really go? Are you automatically defaulting to, you know, like, I don't have a lot of choices, right? I have to work for my boss. I have to, you know, have conventional medicine, or I have to, like, whatever it is, if you're not willing to say, hey, is there something else? Or, you know, maybe my objective is a little bit different. And that doesn't mean that you can't question it and then still go down a conventional path. I'm not saying that, but, you know, in terms of kind of personality, the people who are willing to dream and say, you know, like, wouldn't it be cool if I could live a little bit of a better life? Wouldn't it be cool if I had more vitality or more energy? Or like, could you imagine if I had more help? I was telling Rochelle just before this that, you know, we've got more full-time help in our business and in our home, you know, and you know, admittedly, it's my husband and I and our dog, but giving us time back, right? Leveling up. Like, so if people said like, hey, how could I get somebody else to support me a little bit, whether it's family jumping in, or, you know, whether it's like, what creative solution is there? I would say people who are a little bit more creative to say, there's got to be something out there that's going to help me meet my needs. You know, the people who believe are the people who make it happen. The people who say, hey, this is shocking. There's holes in it. It's going to fall apart. It's never going to work. They're the ones who don't even like open the door. You know, maybe they stand on the mat or they throw tomatoes and eggs at the door. But, you know, if they were just a little bit more willing to say, hey, is there something, you know, could you explain if you're doing something different? You know, if your life looks a little different, like how could I take one step closer in that direction? And it's not because they want to have my life or yours, but, you know, if any element of this is really appealing, it's like, how do I get one step closer? And I think most people have maybe not had enough opportunity or encouragement to dream. You know, they feel stuck. They feel like this is my life and I just got to keep going through the motions without saying like, what if I had more joy and excitement? What if I had more vitality? What if I had more money? What if I had more freedom? And when you start to ask those questions, and if you're watching here, like, I'm going to challenge you and encourage you, you know, with your family today, with a spouse, with a business partner, you know, ask each other a question like, what could we do to have more excitement? What could we do to have more money? What could we do to live a better quality of life? And when you start asking those questions, really cool answers come to appear. And, you know, never leap off a building, take one step at a time. But when you start asking those questions, and I know you gals do all the time, your life starts to change for the better.
I think it's an awareness.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, it honestly amazes me how many people just the whole ideology of just picking up the phone to ask a question, it just, that whole concept and all the hurdles that are stuck in that concept blow my mind. We tell people all the time, and I'm sure you're the exact same way, that like, just pick up the phone and call me. Like, just message me, just email me, just reach out, right? And we're 100% serious about that. Like, it amazes me that, you know, we don't charge for this time. We don't do those things for us, Rochelle and I'm speaking, right? Like, we don't, you know, like, pick up, like, we'll answer your questions, right? And if you have more questions than we can answer, we're going to give them to someone like you, Limor, right? So, I mean, regardless Rochelle and I are both willing to help people kind of try and navigate some things. And I mean, trust me, anybody who picks up that phone and calls either myself or Rochelle, like, you're going to end up coming out of that call with something that is going to allow you to lead to something better.
And it's so wild, because last week before we hit the road, I had a phone call with a couple of real estate investors out of Regina. And they were like, hey, you know what? Your name keeps coming up. And I figured I'd just reach out. I think they reached out on Facebook to book in the call or whatever. And I always say, I'll take a call with anybody. Now we can chat and I'll know in the first 5 minutes if you're our people or not. And these are active investors. They're not remotely interested in investing with us. They are, in some people's world, could be potentially competition, right? Again, this is the small-minded thinking. We live in a very abundant world, so we don't look at things as coming from a area of lack. We always look at everything as it's a very abundant. So for me, I'm like, that's amazing that you are, wanting to work your way out of your jobs, get into real estate investing full time, because I completely love this world. And I think that more people should get into it, but not everybody has that capacity to do it, right? So they were two guys in business together, and they kind of talked about their business plan. And then I basically completely ripped it apart, right? And it wasn't because I am like, yeah, that's a dumb idea. It's because I come from a place of giving, and I come from a place of caring, even though some people might not see that side of me, but I do, I honestly do. And I said, whatever you choose to do does nothing. I don't depend on this at all. Like, none of any of this information, whether you do or don't, or whatever comes out of this conversation, has no effect on my life. But what I'm telling you is 8 years of real estate investing experience. And it is literally the plan you're putting together. I've seen it happen. We, at one point, had that as our strategy too. And I've seen other people who are very smart, very well educated. And I said, that business model just does not work in Saskatchewan, because we do not have appreciation, and it's appreciation play. And you're just, if you choose to go that way, you're going to have a lot of heartache, a lot of time loss, a lot of energy loss. And I give you a year. If you're really stubborn, you might give it 2 years before you just walk away, because it does not work here, right? And I said, again, this is just what I've learned and what I've seen and what I know, right? So it's up to them what they choose to do, but it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next, couple months, year, 2 years. And I don't want to say I told you so. I'm just giving people nuggets and saying, this is what it is. Again, going back to success leaves clues, and it is what it is. So it was just a really interesting conversation.
It's a win-win either way, either outcome, right? Because there's the side where, okay, if they go and attempt to do it and it doesn't work, well, you had given them the foresight to potentially not have to go down that road. On the other hand, though, if they do go into it and they think of some creative spin and it does end up working, well, then that's a cool aspect too, because it was like, well, I gave you all the reasons over here it won't work, why it won't work, right? So as long as I feel, as long as whoever they are, I don't know, I knew of this conversation, but I don't know people. But I would say,
sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, I look at it like it's a win regardless, because you gave them tools to go out there and attempt to do this, and either they're going to take your advice from someone who is a mentor, or they're not, and they're going to take the life lesson. So either way, it's a win.
Yeah, and I mean, it's great that you've had those conversations. I had a similar chat with a girl this week. She called me up and she was like, hey, and a former client of mine. So, it was a good fit to have this conversation. She was like, can I pick your brain? And she was telling me how she really wanted to do an Airbnb strategy. So I said, okay, cool. We all have, you and I all have Airbnb that's, rocking and rolling. But I said to her, okay, before we go down this road, what are your objectives? And when she shared them with me, it helped me to understand why she was looking to do the strategy in the first place. And I said to her, okay, well, if these are your objectives, here's where the strategy you're thinking you might have watched a cool Netflix show or seen a webinar or something amazing online, but here are all of the challenges in what your strategy you're thinking of based on the financial plans and goals that you have. And at that point in time, she was like, oh, wow, I didn't even realize I just stumbled across this sexy looking strategy, but I hadn't realized that, I've got to invest in I'm like, it's a hotel. You can't just
Yes.
buy an empty house,
Yeah.
right? You got to furnish it. You want to have
Who's going to clean it?
high-end clients. And she was like, she could only afford a certain amount in here in the Ontario GTA region that was not in the immediate vicinity. And I was like, are you going to drive 2 hours to flip the house every time? Like, and she was like, oh God, no. And I was like, yeah. So when we're thinking about kind of these things, and, you know, I don't blame anybody. I love if they're like, hey, I'm thinking of this strategy, but, and this is where you add so much value in your conversations, ladies, with investors, because I know you're asking these questions. But if you're, you know, you're watching this video on replay or webinar, I mean, have a think about what is the real reason you want to do this in the first place. Because when you identify why that is, let's say a passive investment is super important to you, well, then don't go ahead and do your own flip. Don't do a BRRRR. Don't do an Airbnb. If you want money to be passive, right? That's where, you know, you ladies come in and you're like, let me do all of that heavy lifting for you, give you strong returns. And I think it's a really neat thing. So I love that, you know, you're teaching people and educating them, and, you know, we're all in on that journey together.
Well, and we'll have calls too with people that they're like, well, I don't want to share a percentage of the deal. I just want to pay you to manage it. And we're like, that's not what we do. So if you want to do that, you should go and invest somewhere else that is going to give you what you want. Now, at the end of the day, what do we provide? We provide people time freedom. Right? So yes, there's going to be a split of the profits because we're doing all the things, the investors are bringing the money. So we couldn't do what we do if we didn't have our amazing investors to work with. At the same time, they couldn't be living their best lives knowing their money's working just as hard as they are, because with partnering with us, the business is making that all work, right? So it's a win-win. And that's why I think we get along so well, is the integrity, the win-win, and knowing that everybody who is involved has to be getting something out of it. And it has to be doing well. So,
absolutely. I love that alignment. And when we reconnected, it was super cool. What? You're doing that? I'm doing this? How to create more opportunities for people.
100%.
Yeah.
Do you want to just put your email in here? I think I got typed in wrong.
Yeah, of course. No problem. There we go. Amazing. Popping that in here.
Okay, perfect. So limor@limor.money.
Yep, that's the email address, place to be able to find me if you're, you know, wanting to touch base and figure out how this type of coaching can really support you on your journey.
And then don't you guys run a Facebook group?
Yes. So Elizabeth, Kelly, and I also run the Canadian Real Estate Investing Mastermind group. We've got over 4,000, close to 4,500 investors across the country. And, you know, we do regular webinars. It's a great place to be able to connect, to be working with other people. So really, it's always about kind of like raising the vibe, raising the education, raising, you know, the size of the dream that you have to be able to connect with other people and work with them. And it's really cool because when you've got people who are a few steps ahead of you and they can show you the way, it's really so much more of a smooth ride, right? When you've got people supporting you, and especially like all the boss babes. Can we give a shout out to all the boss babes and the lady bosses out there? I mean, it's very rare. I mean, I know it happens to you guys all the time, but for me, for three ladies, we got the blonde, the redhead, the brunette in the room. You know,
Charlie's Angels.
There you go. Representing lady bosses around the world. But like, you know, for women, money can still be even more challenging, right? And here we've got three ladies piercing that glass ceiling and just doing it our own way. And I think that's part of what I'm really proud of us all, that we're, you know, we're trying to be anything that we're not. I don't know, but I had spent 12 years in the corporate world before I became this entrepreneur. And I remember that all of the successful women in the corporate world, in the banking world, there were a few things I remembered. They had short hair, first of all, and I love like long hair forever. Rapunzel, let down your hair. They all had multiple divorces under their belt, and they all had this expression that was called sharp elbows, which is like, get out of my way, I have my own agenda. And I always kind of like thought to myself, like, do I really have to be like that if I want to be successful? And that was just something that was part of that corporate world mold. I don't know if it's like that still today. I imagine there's at least some elements, but being women who are carving our own way using amazing real estate as a back end, with so much support and so much security and such high returns. I mean, it's pretty cool to be hanging with you awesome ladies.
Yeah, and I love that. And for me, like when Limor was like, what are you doing out in Ontario, right? And really it was semi-selfish because I just
missed me. Let's be
yeah,
honest.
of course.
Okay, let's just call it what it is.
For sure. But really it was that. It was, of course, I want to connect with all of our amazing investors, current and new. I mean, we just had a meeting a couple days ago with one of our clients who has over $1 million invested with us. Never met him before, him and his wife. And, you know, one of our big fish for sure. And he's very active. He brings us a lot of new people who are interested in investing. And at the end of the day, we'd never met before. Like, how mind-boggling is that? So when people are like, oh, well, how does somebody just invest $250,000 with you, or their $50,000 RSP, or whatever that might make sense for them, whatnot. But it really comes down to rapport. And again, you know, we're real live people. We see, you know, we're here as much as we can be. But at the end of the day, it's always an energy thing. So you know in your gut instinct if you're making a good decision. And so for us, I'm always like looking for more people who are our vibe and such. But it's been amazing because along with the investor meetings, meeting current, meeting potential new investors, I've also been able to fit in a lot of friends who are also active real estate investors too. And it's so interesting because again, some people might be like, but that's your competition. They raise capital too. They're doing flips. Yeah, but you know what? We can all cheer for each other because we're all winning. And at the end of the day, when I'm retired, financially free, and whatever that looks like, I've hit my own personal financial goals and I want to travel the world, I'm going to need somebody to travel with. I'm going to need people to travel with.
Okay,
right?
so I have this kind of running joke with one of my friends who's also a very high level gentleman, lots of success under his belt. And he's like, you know, down the road, I need someone to come hang out with me on my yacht. It can't just be me. That's going to be so boring.
Yeah.
So,
and it's so amazing because we even have investors who are working towards their financial freedom. And they're like, hey, man, how cool would it be to be able to go on a trip and whatever. And again, like we have investors who have turned into friends. And that's, again, when you're vibing at the same frequency and you're living your best life, you can, like, it's really, we live a very blessed life and be able to do what we do. So Alisa, do you want to talk about our next epic hour, please? I don't know all the details.
Sure. Friday, November 13th. Woohoo!
Friday, 13th.
that's actually a lucky day.
That's Alisa's favorite.
At, I got 4 p.m. Our time, Saskatchewan time, 2 p.m. Pacific, and 5 p.m. Eastern. So that'll cover Canada right there. And yeah, that's a different time.
We're doing it differently because we might have a surprise.
Okay.
We'll see. We'll see. Who knows where we'll be coming from?
That's always a surprise.
We don't have a topic picked yet, but we will definitely find something good. But we so appreciate your time and thank you for hosting us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. What a great chance to be able to connect with you and your audience and your followers. I love your people. You know, like to talk about vibing, we're on the same level. So if I can support anybody who's watching here live or is watching on the replay, again, feel free to reach out to me on Facebook, Limor, Limor, super easy to find. The best place as well by email is Limor, Limor, at Limor, Limor.money, MONEY, cha-ching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a couple minutes here. Does anybody have any questions at all while we still have Limor here? If you do, just type it in the chat and our team will read it out for us. And then, yeah, do you have anything to add, Alisa?
Yeah, I was just going to say, and I mean, Limor, you're a full testament to exactly what we say all the time, the mentorship and coaching. There is not enough value placed on that. People need to understand how valuable it is to bring someone in to ask questions to help things go smoother, faster, and better. And and it doesn't matter what that aspect. And it's funny how, like, look at sports, right? People don't hesitate to get, somebody to teach them how to skate faster or throw a ball faster or, swing a club better, right? In golf, and yet when you start talking about education around money, it really amazes me how many people just go, oh, no, what do I need education for? I just go to the bank, right? And it's like, oh, seriously, people, just, the bank is, you got to kind of think of the bank as they're just not your friend, right? It amazes me. Usually the first question I ask them when they start talking about that kind of thing is, okay, well, I have a question for you. Are you the client to the bank, or is the bank the client to you? Right? And right there, most of the time they can't even answer it, And then that's when I'm just like, see, you don't even know what your position is, right? And, but anyways, but I think coaching and mentorship is just, whether it's you're getting personal growth coaching, business coaching, whatever, any aspect of your life, find someone who knows more than you and ask questions and then carry it on and put it to action.
And I think people lose sight of the fact that they're like, well, that's a cost. And I'm like, don't look at it as a cost. Look at it as an investment. And what is your ROI going to be? So you could get a lot of free training, but you're still investing your time. So what is your ROT? What's your return on time? Because right now, where we're at, we have more money like allowed or available than we do time. So if we can hire somebody at a $20, $25, whatever, an hour rate to let us go and make $100 an hour or whatever our rate might be, that is a good investment, right? And so
That's
some people, yeah. So some people, I think, look at things differently and they forget that how much their time is valued at. And, sometimes, like you were talking about having this person in the house, like that's amazing, because by having that person, and they're going to be able to have, take off so much off of your plate. And then that lets you expand your capacity to then do more of what you're best at and work on your higher level stuff. Like, oh, sorry, I need water. That is amazing. And that is such a good return on your investment.
It gives you a level of freedom. It raises your vibration. It changes the quality of your life. And, you gals said it's spot on. You want to get mentorship in any area of your life, but specifically here, we're talking about money, from someone you would trade time with, someone who you would trade positions with. If you're like, wow, I want to have whatever it is that person has. And, money is a really big part of it, but a big piece of it is like, what does that enable you to do in your quality of life? Do you have geographic freedom? Like my husband and I can work from anywhere at any point in time. Can you do whatever you want? I don't generally work with clients before noon, because in the morning it's, hey, that's when we're working on our own personal projects and moving things forward. We had a little bit of a later night last night. So this morning, hey, slept in and was hanging in the hot tub. And I was like, wanted to be beautiful and fresh for you gals to be able to come on over. So when you're looking to work with someone, when you're considering saying, hey, look, I'm not even sure what it is, I want something more, start to look around for who has something that you want to have, you want to borrow, you want to learn from, you want to acquire. And honestly, that's the fastest way. And I'll just I know we're getting to the end, but I'll just say, so cool that rewind 8 years ago, we met in classrooms where we knew nothing about real estate. We just wanted to learn. We just wanted to see what was possible, wanted to see what we create for ourselves, our families, our communities. And
we're willing to invest. Those were big ticket educations.
Oh, yes.
But would never go back, would never change anything.
Yeah, just moving forward. So, I mean, thank you.
It's the things with people. If they're going to take anything away from this amazing hour, it's like everybody talks about igniting their passion, igniting, some spirit, but honestly, it's ignite your curiosity. If you ignite your curiosity, you will, and follow that curiosity, you're going to end up getting to where you're going to find the right people, you're going to find the right things that are going to elevate your life. I think that gets underplayed. And it's like, open up your curiosity, because if you can open up your mind enough just to ask a question, to be curious, it's going to lead you somewhere.
Ask the questions.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, we're going to sign off here because we're hitting our 1 hour, but we thank you guys so much for joining us. And if you're watching on the replay, again, #replay. So thank you. And we hope you're staying safe. And in the meantime,
stay epic.
Epic.